So let's talk through another slightly crazy damage combo that can kill just about anything in Warhammer 40k. Mortarion, the Nightbringer and Imperial Knights don't really seem to be any match for 7 angry boys with power swords. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today I thought we'd do another big fun damage combo video and put one of the scary things out there in the meta through its paces. In this video I thought we'd take a look at the sheer carnage that can be unleashed by High Marshal Helbrecht and some sword brethren, perhaps one of the single damage combos in Warhammer 40k at the moment that can pose enough of a threat to take down just about anything in the game, and when truly maxed out with multiple buffs going, these guys can even threaten to put down things like titans in a single round of combat, which is kind of mad. I must have had this suggested about 10 times or so to talk about on the channel, and I thought that given High Marshal Helbrecht coming up again in that recent Chapter Master video that I made, it'd be worth talking about this combo and seeing exactly what carnage it can do. Let's talk through each piece of the combo, exactly what sort of things that they might be able to kill on the charge, plus a few other final thoughts and drawbacks that might limit its potential. For this one, the core of the combo is the Primaris Sword Brethren, 5 to 10 models for either 140 or 280 points. Often with these big theoretical combo videos you usually go for the max squad, but for this one 5 of them are absolutely adequate. You can have the other 5 guys to go somewhere else on the board or stay off the table, and they're still going to chop up just about anything in the game. Each of these guys is 3 wounds at toughness 4 with a 3+ save, maybe not enormously durable for the cost, though not terrible. They do get some fairly savage damage output though, getting a whole bunch of attacks at strength 5, AP 2 and damage 1. One guy can take a thunder hammer and one can take a mastercrafted power sword for damage 2 attacks on the sword brother. And their special rule is Vow-Sworn Bladesmen. They get to either increase their damage characteristic of all their melee weapons by 1 in the fight phase, or give each member of the squad +1 attack. It means that the standard guys get up to rival Blade Guard for damage output with strength 5 and damage 2, but is really good on things like the Thunder Hammer and the Mastercrafted Power Weapon. They both get to be damage 3, and perhaps scariest of all, the buffs work on characters, which means that particularly with High Marshal Helbrecht you can make them go to the next level damage output wise. Speaking of which, the High Marshal of the Black Templars is High Marshal Helbrecht, 95 points, sorry for getting that slightly wrong in the Chapter Master video, I said he was 105, which was the initial points cost in 10th edition, and he's a pretty redoubtable fighter in his own right. A 2+ armor save if he ever gets targeted, a combi weapon that can spit out some anti-infantry devastating wounds at strength 5 damage 2, but most importantly a really brutal melee profile. The Sword of the High Marshals can either get 6 attacks at strength 8 and damage 3, or 12 attacks at strength 6 and damage 1, all at AP 3. And that strength 6 damage 1 profile is particularly nice with the Sword Brethren, as that would then be strength 6 and damage 2, going all the way up to strength 7 and damage 2, given that his innate buffing rule allows you to add +1 to the strength characteristic of all melee weapons in his squad, including his. Means that just off that core combo alone, he'll be hitting at either strength 9 damage 4 or strength 7 damage 2. Pretty brutal stuff either way. Then other than that, he starts off the fight phase with a punchy bit of close combat by rolling a dice and dealing out some mortal wounds, D3 on a 2 to 3, 3 on a 4 to 5, or D3 plus 3 on a 6. On average, that's 2.5 mortal wounds before the fight phase has even begun. No bad thing at all against just about any target in the game. Finally, as if all that weren't enough, he also gets critical hits on a 5+ in melee with him and the squad that he's leading. On its own, that doesn't really do a lot, but it both combines with things like an attached Castellan or Lieutenant in the unit, or the Templar vows that you can get from the Righteous Crusaders detachment, and that's what really takes an already great squad into something apocalyptic. Already at this stage, before we've even added anything else, the 2 squads work together pretty nicely and are really quite threatening on the table. The squad's got 12 attacks at strength 6, AP 2 and damage 2, and then between the Thunder Hammer and the Mastercrafted Power Weapon you've got 7 attacks at damage 3. Helbrecht starting the combat with 2 or 3 mortal wounds usually, and then the choice of a scary strike or sweep profile. Most things in the game are already going to have to be pretty nervous of them, never mind any of the actual combo stuff that you can do with them. Beyond this, there do seem to be a few interesting options where you can expand further though. Starting out, as well as having Helbrecht in the unit, you can also add in a Castellan or Lieutenant for 65 points. This one's the datasheet for the Black Templars Castellan, though you could also use a Lieutenant if you wanted access to a Power Fist. This guy could bear an enhancement if needed, and is quite big in the way that he gives the unit lethal hits, so Helbrecht's critical hit thing basically amps up the Castellan, gives you lethal hits on a 5+, and really rewards you if you're using Oath of Moments to re-roll the hit roll, as you could get most of your hits auto-wounding. He also does bring a bunch of other damage 2 attacks to the squad as well, and gives the squad fallback shoot and charge, which could also be relevant, and bear enhancements. Speaking of Oath of Moment, that means that you get to reroll everything that isn't a 5+ if you choose just one squad to be absolutely murdered by this squad. It would sacrifice the possibility of using it elsewhere to buff other things in the unit, but if you're going all in for just utterly destroying one thing, then it perhaps has more value here versus just about anything else. You can reroll anything that isn't a 5+ on their melee, so basically on average 5 out of 9 attacks will be auto-wounding the enemy, which is going to be a problem for any heavy hitters that you would have otherwise been wounding on a 5+. Then if you're playing the Righteous Crusaders detachment, the Black Templars Index detachment, you can make their melee even more scary, or also potentially give you the option to pass up the need for the Castellan or Lieutenant if you just wanted to keep the unit points light. In this detachment, Black Templar players often use the 6+ Feel No Pain type save to add a bit of durability to their army. So if you wanted to, you could either swap that out for things like sustained hits in melee or lethal hits in melee, both of which could be another way of getting those keywords into the unit, and make High Marshal Helbrecht's critical hit rule worth something, even if there's not a lieutenant around. On top of that though, you also have access to the 1 command point Fervent Acclamation stratagem. You trigger this one in the command phase, so they'd have to be out of a transport and things, and until the start of the next phase, that character's unit gets to choose one of the other vows, so you could either hit the unit with lethal hits or sustained hits. That basically means there's 2 pathways that the unit could get lethal hits and sustained hits on the same squad, either with a Castellan and the 1 command points to activate the sustained hits vow, or maybe have the lethal hits vow just active for your entire army, and buy in the sustained hits with Fervent Acclamation. As seemingly with plenty of other places out there in Warhammer 40k, that just really makes the damage absolutely spike, as now it means that every 5 and 6 will both be lethal and sustained, so get an additional hit as well as that auto wound. And if you use Oath of Moments to reroll to get as many 5+s as possible, then your opponent's in for a world of hurt. Then finally, just as another main option, you have the option for using Crusader's Wrath for 1 CP to get an extra pip of AP if it's necessary. As we'll see by the average numbers in a second, if you're using every other bit of the combo, you probably don't need it. But if you had a depleted squad, or weren't maximally using all the other bits, like Oath of Moment for example, this could be good enough to make the difference and make sure something with a very high save dies. If the enemy's got a 2+ save, or an Armour of Contempt style stratagem, or both, then it could make a massive difference to your damage output. As a bonus, if you have the lethal hits vow active, it'd also give you a +1 strength as well, getting Helbrecht up to either strength 8 or strength 10. Putting that all together, here are the numbers for the amount of attacks spat out by one squad. Here's just one build of them, with Helbrecht leading up a unit of 5 Sword Brethren, taking the Mastercrafted Power Weapon and Thunderhammer, and then also accompanied by a Lieutenant with a Power Fist, for a unit that is exactly 300 points. The units in the Righteous Crusaders detachment, and using 1 command point to access sustained hits, and then Oath of Moment on its intended prey, rerolling everything that isn't a 5+ to get as many sustained and lethal hits as possible. Adding that all together, you get 2 or 3 mortal wounds to start with Helbrecht, 12 attacks at strength 6 AP2 damage 2, a total of 11 damage 3 attacks between the Lieutenant and the special weapons within the Sword Brethren squad, and then Helbrecht with his sweep or strike mode, the strength difference not really making that much of a difference given that so many hits will be auto-wounding. I have used a little bit of just rough napkin math with this. These numbers won't be 100% exact, but will be near enough figures, and roughly on average it leads to approximately 47 hits either at damage 2 or damage 3 on your opponent. Just under half of those will be auto-wounding. I've used Helbrecht sweep mode for most of these. Against infantry it tends to be the better one, and unless you're actually targeting something toughness 7 to 9, it's pretty much even against the tough stuff as well. Overall, for average damage though, against standard pattern Space Marines, you get around about 32 slain by my numbers. The exact number probably doesn't matter too much by that really, but basically you're killing a big squad of Space Marines about 3 times over, with 7 very angry guys with power swords. For a Terminator squad, you get around about 12 slain of them, so if you have Terminators that don't have some sort of special defensive rule active, that's basically an entire squad wiped out in one go. Could be approaching 400 points there for some armies. Against a toughness 10 3+ save vehicle, you average around about 45 wounds. the high toughness not really being much protection when you've got lethal hits on the go, and all the other attacks wound on a 5+, and they've got a high volume. Against a harder target like a toughness 12 Land Raider with a 2+ save, you get around about 33 wounds. Again, she'll be killing one of those around about twice over, and it doesn't get a load better if you've got a 4+ invulnerable save. Basically, if you're charging into an Imperial Knight or even a Dominus Knight with a 2+ armor save and extra wounds, you are likely to kill it in one round. Basically, just about any standard target in the game of 40k is almost certainly dead to these 300 points of very scary power sword men. Pretty much nothing stands a chance against this volume of fairly high damage attacks with high AP, with quite so many of them getting to auto wounds. Given that they handle those targets quite so easily, I thought it would be interesting to see how they fare against some of the toughest stuff in the game. Seems that Mortarion isn't really any match for these guys. He's toughness 12, 16 wounds with a 4+ invulnerable save and a 5+ feel no pain. I believe that even after that feel no pain you get around about 22 wounds on average dealt against him. His legendary durability isn't enough match for these guys apparently. Otherwise, a big bad durable unit at the moment is the Catan Shard of the Nightbringer. He's toughness 11 at 12 wounds, a 4+ invulnerable save, and he both has the half damage special rule from his Necrodermis and a 5+ feel no pain. Just ridiculous, spectacular durability stats there. Though it looks like with average rolling, even he can't stand against them, taking 13 wounds on average, so just about likely to kill him. And compared with some of the other tougher targets out there, he might actually fear their small arms fire a little bit before they charge in. There's a reasonable chance that plinks another wound or two, given that he doesn't have a particularly good armor save. Otherwise, for another at least somewhat common big challenge could be 5 Custodian Wardens. If they have a character attached, they're -1 to wound and can trigger a 4+ feel no pain defense once per game, and even before that they have high toughness stats, a 4+ invulnerable save and 3 wounds apiece, so 15 wounds total for these guys. On average it looks like you get around about 21 wounds to them, which should kill the squad outright still, plus have a pretty good chance of slaying whatever character was attached to them, though that could definitely swing high or low. Looks like they might be enough to stand against this unit though if they pop the -1 damage stratagem that the Custodians can do. It does cost 2 CP, but that would probably be enough to save them. Would likely still lose a big chunk of them, but it looks like the unit shouldn't be wiped. It is quite powerful against the Black Templars given that so many of their attacks are damaged too. Overall pretty brutal stuff though. Under normal circumstances a pretty reasonable chance to wipe out a lot of the toughest things in the game right now. It's certainly no mean feat to one round those ridiculously durable Catan. Overall really quite a scary unit, not really too hard to see why they're quite so commonly played in Black Templars army lists. It's really quite powerful to have a squad in the army that can threaten to one round just about any normal unit in Warhammer 40k, and a lot of things they might just be able to pretty comfortably kill without even any sort of investment in them. You don't have to spend stratagems or use the Oath of Moment on their target if you're just going to kill them anyway. Perhaps the biggest drawbacks are that they're not really very tough for almost 300 points. 15 wounds worth of Space Marines and 2 characters just aren't that hard to put down for that sort of cost, and likely if they charge in and kill something they're probably going to get hit back very hard as a priority. They also can only move 6 inches if they want to charge unless you're in a detachment that allows you to advance and charge in some way, so ideally could use some sort of delivery, maybe a Land Raider for a reliable long charge for them, or an Impulsor if you're just using Helbrecht and 5 Sword Brethren. Transports could have a potential to get in the way of their stratagems though. I believe that being embarked in the command phase would stop you targeting them with that command phase stratagem. Otherwise, if they're in Stormlance or Gladius, you could get them to advance and charge that way, or could even do weird things in Vanguard like taking the Infiltrate enhancement and having them ready for a first turn charge if you really wanted to. That'd be a bit of a high risk, high reward approach though. Otherwise, for downsides, they do take a bit of forethought perhaps. Vow stratagems and the Oath of Moment need to be declared in the command phase against their targets. So you need to be able to nominate the target that they're going to charge early on, and you wouldn't necessarily even know if they made that charge successfully at that point, which could be kind of brutal. So it's not something that you can change your mind on later in the turn. Overall though, absolutely certainly enough to justify themselves in game. Very, very scary to see Helbrecht and a small unit of Sword Brethren being able to countercharge and destroy things that move up the board. And if you did want to, you could go even bigger into the combo and buy a big 10-man block of Sword Brethren alongside the Castellan and just take things up to the next level. Realistically, by the numbers, with a fresh squad, you've probably killed most things that you charged already if you put some investment into them, but I suppose a 10-man unit might need less investment, plus might be just a little bit more robust to being hit back, so you might still survive with enough Sword Brethren to do it all over again. You could make the 5+ feel no pain from the 10 Houses Bones enhancement go a bit further as well, if you did give that to the Lieutenant or Castellan. In any case, let me know what you think of them. Black Templars players, have you had success with this combo, and any other subtleties or means of delivery that I've not covered here, and have any of you played against it, and either lost something big, or being able to counter it by screening and holding them up until you can eliminate them? Look forward to hearing all your thoughts down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, or I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming. I do tend to post new stuff just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description if you'd like to help support and keep these coming. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.